Good Friday late morning to all of you tuning into today's episode of Real Living in Bridgeport. If you are tuning in and joining us for the first time, we are talking about Real Living in Bridgeport, which is a neighborhood, one of the 70-something neighborhoods in the city of Chicago. So with that said, let me bring in my co-host today, who is joining us mobile. So Warren, let me bring you in here and let's kind of kick things off. How are you today?
Pretty good.
Yeah.
Hi, everyone. Hi, Bill.
Good. So I see you're in your mobile office today. Quite
Yes.
natural, right? You're moving from point to point. Hey, you got to do what you got to do.
Right.
So Warren, let's lead off today's conversation with one thing that probably is important enough to set the tone for what's going on for those people who are living in Bridgeport, who want to live in Bridgeport, and that is what is going on with the current real estate market. Are things starting to change a little bit as far as like inventory, still a seller's market? What can you tell us?
I think the market has been slowly shifting. I mean, it's still a seller's market because inventory is still low.
Yes.
But buyers are still like waiting, I guess. They're not as fast to act. Listings on the market have increased a little bit, like a few days more than what it was previously.
Okay.
In the Bridgeport area.
So does that mean this though? If a property 123 Halstead Street in Bridgeport, if it is in good to great moving condition, it's priced competitively by you, is that kind of property in Bridgeport right now still attracting multiple buyer offers?
Still, but probably not as much.
Really? Interesting. Yeah. Okay. All right. So as you and I know, a balanced market is always healthy, right?
Right.
Because then, you're not fighting the wars with multiple offers. That's, of course, if you're a buyer. If you're a seller, of course, you want as many offers so that you can cherry pick amongst many, right?
Yes.
Okay. Cool beans. So with that said, for those of you who are sellers, potentially planning to sell a property, just like Warren Wu has shared with you, is still a seller's market. So the opportunity for you to attract the right buyer, to maximize how much you can sell it for, therefore top dollar, the opportunity is still there, but things are starting to change. So time is of the essence.
Correct.
Yeah. One of the things I know we touched on, you and I, before, is with it being a tight inventory situation, we've talked about, well, hey, what if there are some buyers out there who may be thinking, you know what, I'm really looking for something a little different. In their eyes, it's the unicorn property. It's the property that's probably owned by grandmother, grandfather, not yours or mine, but somebody else's.
Right.
And it's a property where it's dated. It's maybe, and so with that, I want to bring in to our conversation today a relationship that I have who can maybe speak to how to tackle the acquisition of that property and turn that ugly duckling into a nice prince or princess. So let's welcome today our guest. His name is Jonathan Clem. But before I bring him into the conversation, let's make sure he's ready to roll with us. So let me check in on him. Jonathan, are you ready? I think you're ready. So let's bring you into the conversation. Hello, Jonathan. How are you doing?
What's up, Bill? What's up, Warren? I'm ready to roll. So let's get
You
it
are
going.
ready to roll. You are ready to roll. By the way, thank you for squeezing us into your calendar today. I know when you are a builder, renovator, contractor, you got a lot of people kind of clawing at your time and schedule. So thank you for sharing that with us today.
Yeah, no problem. Happy to
Yeah.
jump on and happy to add some value and talk renovations.
Yeah. By the way, I love your t-shirt. Serve, serve, serve. That's what we're all about. Yes. So Jonathan, because you have worked on those projects for John Doe buyer who's looking for that unicorn property, grandparents property that he wants to turn into his next first home, but he needs to convert it into the princess or the prince. What are some of your lessons learned that you impart upon those clients that you work with?
Well, yeah, I think kind of like Warren mentioned earlier that, when you have multiple offers, it's tough to always set yourself apart. And I think, one way to avoid some of those multiple offer situations is to kind of identify properties that might have been on the market for a little bit longer. And oftentimes those are some of your ugly ducklings, like you mentioned, Bill. And oftentimes you can kind of slide in after everyone else, after all like the hustle and bustle has came out after they're originally listed. So I'm always kind of advising clients to look at the properties that might have been sitting for a little bit longer than everything else to see kind of what the potential might be if they did a renovation on something like that.
Okay. And what, in your experience working with those specialty niche financing solutions like the 203K renovation, what are some of the things that sometimes buyers fail to remember that you can drop into our conversation today?
Yeah, I mean, I think the biggest thing is often the timeline that comes along with these renovation loans. And the two that we typically see most often are the one you mentioned, the 203K and or the home style. And
Yes.
so both are great products. With FHA, you can go down to 3.5%. With the home style, you can go down to 5%. And there's just certain steps and hurdles you have to get through to use those products, and the biggest one is getting a contractor on site, getting the bid from them, and also then lining up your HUD consultant to walk the property so you can get a bid of repairs from them.
Yep.
And all that information then goes to lender. So there's a lot of moving parts there. And I think the biggest thing most people don't typically have ready is like every one of those pieces in the puzzle ready to go. And oftentimes they're looking for people while they're still looking for the properties, instead of knowing like, okay, I have my contractor, I've got my HUD consultant, I've got my lender. When you have those three people locked in and they've worked through these loan products before, everything gets much easier.
Yeah, it does get much easier. And Warren, you can smile and chuckle a little bit. You've heard this from me before. And Jonathan, I think you've heard this from me before, especially in this type of niche unicorn project. Real estate is a team sport. You got to make sure that you got to have the right team on the field so that everybody knows what is the play, how to run the play, and setting proper expectations first and foremost with the client, with John Doe buyer, and of course sellers as well. You got to set those expectations, right? And then expectations amongst and with each other. Jonathan, would you say the process maybe differs a little bit when John Doe is not acquiring the distressed property to live in, therefore his, her, or their next primary residence? But if John Doe now is an investor that's looking to acquire grandmother's property, but really the intent is to flip it, not to live in it, but flip it for for an upside after the improvement has been made. How does that change anything in your world, or is the process about the same?
Yeah, I think the overall process is the same. bill. I think it's just more about substituting in different materials that you may use on a flip or a rental versus someone who's has their forever home. You know, there's going to be a little bit more pickiness, or, you know, a better selection type for those homeowners. You know, they're going to want to pick everything out in detail since they're going to be living there forever.
Right, exactly. And when an investor is picking up the distressed property, improving it, and then flipping it on the sell side for an upside for a profit, usually it's that of, you know, renting the unit or the units out for cash flow. So yeah, you don't want to overdo your renovation. You want to do it just right so that the cash flowing makes sense, right?
Yeah, I completely agree. I think, you know, on the renovation side, on the investor side, you know, you want to come up with a system and process that you can repeat over and over again. You know, when you're picking different types of tile and different types of faucets, you know, it continues to get confusing, and you want something where, you know, you can build a repeatable process over and over again. I believe that's really the way to scale any type of business, is to build systems and processes that you can use over and over again. And those finished materials is the one thing that, you know, you can find a great tile and a great faucet that can work in every one of your flips and use that same design over and over again.
Yeah. Warren, with your hearing this, what's your take on this? Are there, in your mind, as a broker locally in the Bridgeport neighborhood, are there some homes and properties that you see driving around? You're like, oh yeah, this is that unicorn project for John Doe, either owning it as their first home or John Doe as an investor. Does this help you a little bit?
I think definitely it does, because right now everything is so pricey. So it's not as it is easy to like buy like properties that are actually like fixed up and like move-in ready for most of them. And then nowadays the younger generation, they want everything like brand new.
They want it brand new. They want it now, and they don't want to invest in their own sweat equity. They much rather lean on guys like Jonathan and his crews to get them what they want right now.
Yes, completely agree.
Yeah.
Because just the time.
Yeah. So keep this in mind, Warren, as you're talking to sellers, and maybe those sellers are the owners that have deferred maintenance for intentional reasons, and they're going to vacate the property. They're going to sunset themselves to the next chapter, whatever their reasons are. So, Jonathan, for today, thank you for guest appearing in our episode of Real Living in Bridgeport. Thank you for sharing your time with us. So with that, let's continue the conversation today, Warren, and let's talk about something I know recently you and I worked on together, which is helping a qualified VA buyer with their next chapter. Let me put you on the spot and ask you, what was a couple of things that surprised you helping a VA buyer going through their buying experience? And let's be specific. They certainly benefited from using their VA loan benefit to make their reality happen right now. What surprised you in that whole experience?
Well, for my first VA deal, I never knew that it could be funded 100%. So
yes.
that's one thing that surprised me. Like, you could fund the deal 100%. You don't really need to put on any down payment.
Right.
The next thing would be, it's required to do a termite inspection, because most, or like on average, a lot of inspections, they don't require it unless a home inspector suspects there are termites in the home.
Right.
That's when you have to do it.
Yeah.
That's another surprise. And then also there's something called the Tidewater.
Yes.
The Tidewater notification regarding like appraisal.
Yeah, yeah. And for those of you watching us, if you are a veteran who have used your VA loan benefit already, or maybe you haven't yet, listen here. We're about to drop something that will make what you need to do at some point in time so much easier. This Tidewater alert happens when and if a property may not appraise to support the agreed upon contract and sales purchase price between sellers and buyers. And so the reason that exists, in my professional opinion, boiling it down to layman's terms, is it's really all about protecting the VA buyer so that there's some guardrails set in place so that it's kind of like, hey, we're giving you a heads up, right? I think it's a nice thing that you and I get alerted by, because then we're put on notice with, hey, it's our opportunity and chance to provide some additional supporting data to help in the transaction itself, right?
Right.
Yeah. So with that, yes, for those of you who may be qualified, eligible buyers who served in the military, armed forces, or the National Guard, the VA loan benefit, if you haven't used it yet, is a nice present in your arsenal. For most buyers, you can actually, acquire your first property. Your next property, you have to own or occupy it with nothing more than just a nice size security deposit. That's how I explain it. Right?
Right.
Yeah. So all of that being said, Warren, thanks for joining me today in this episode mobilely from your mobile office. For those of you who are watching us, how can you get in touch with us if you need our help and you want to benefit from starting a conversation with us? All you need to do, audience members, is scan the QR codes that you see here. Both Warren and I will be ready, willing, and able to start a conversation with you. And for those of you who listened in today because you are looking for that unicorn property, that's distress, that is needing, some to a lot of renovation, by scanning these QR codes, Warren and or myself will gladly get you looped in to a consultation with our guest, 𝙍𝙚𝙖𝙡 today. That way you can engage him for exactly what makes sense for you as a first-time renovation client, or if you are an investor about to do your first or your next fix and flip. So all of that being said, Warren, have a good rest of your day. Don't get yourself too wet out there. Where I'm at right now, it's starting to rain, but hey, we need it today.
Right.
All right. So that's it, everyone. See all of you. Warren and I will see all of you in the next episode of Real Living in Bridgeport. 2 weeks out, people. That's it for now.
All right. Have a good one. Bye.